Rome is remembered as one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. From city-state to empire, Rome is still looked on as the pinnacle of Western art and architecture, and today is remembered with Greece as the core of Western culture. Unfortunately, Rome fell a long time ago, and some of the most interesting aspects of its long history today escape notice. So as a prelude to further videos, this is a brief history of the Roman Republic. Rome was reputedly founded by Romulus and Remus, two probably mythological brothers who were raised by a she-wolf and secret heirs to a kingdom. When they finally got a chance to regain their rightful place on the throne, they said nah and went to found a city on 7 hills. In a typical example of ancient drama, they had an argument that ended with Romulus killing Remus and naming the new city after himself. Thus established, Rome existed as a monarchy according to the Romans from 753 to 509 BCE, going through 7 kings before, in another typical example of ancient drama, the final king, Tarquinius Superbus' son, Sextus, raped a noblewoman named Lucretia, who then committed suicide. In response, 4 Romans led by a guy named Brutus incited a rebellion, overthrew the monarchy, and reformed the city into the Senate and people of Rome, and forever after the term king carried very negative connotations for Romans. Rome as a republic garnered far more influence than it had as a monarchy, and within a few hundred years had expanded to control most of the Italian peninsula. It was about this time that Rome came into conflict with another superpower of the time, Carthage. Rome and Carthage were both situated in locations fit for trading powerhouses, Carthage being in modern-day Tunisia. Unlike Rome, which had up to this point focused on a land-based military at the expense of their navy, Carthage had perhaps the most powerful fleet in the world. Things came to a head when conflict erupted over the island of Sicily, which Carthage had colonized some time prior. The Senate wanted to expand its sphere of influence over the island, and so in 264 BCE, the first of 3 Punic Wars began. For most of the war, which lasted 23 years, things were mostly even, with Rome unable to cross the Mediterranean for fear of Carthage's powerful fleet, and Carthage being unable to combat Rome's powerful army. Eventually, Rome was able to modernize its navy and take the fight to Africa. In 241, Carthage surrendered, gave Sicily to Rome along with quite a bit of money, and promptly descended into internal strife, and left Rome the most powerful force in the Mediterranean. The new peace was not to last, however, and in 218 BCE, the Second Punic War began. This was the one Roman war people tend to remember the most, because the Carthaginian general Hannibal did the impossible and crossed the Alps with war elephants into Italy and wreaked havoc through Rome. This war will be the topic of a future video where I'll go more into depth, but suffice it to say that Hannibal lost, and the Roman legions led by Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Africanus, went to Africa and defeated Carthage once more on their own territory, ending the war in 201. Rome followed up by expanding its influence into Spain and Greece, and in 151, Carthage, now little more than a Roman vassal, was invaded by the neighboring kingdom of Numidia. Carthage was forbidden from raising its own troops in the aftermath of the Second Punic War, and so asked Rome for help like it was supposed to. The Roman Senate, establishing a precedent for being dicks, said no and promptly invaded Carthage once more after Carthage raised a militia for self-defense. The Third Punic War ended rather quickly, as Carthage in its current state could not hope to put up a fight against Roman might, and the city was burnt to the ground, its fields salted so that nothing might ever grow there again, and Carthage was no more. Shortly afterward, the Roman legion successfully pacified the kingdom of Numidia, and from then on had almost total control of northern Africa. Eventually, though, after numerous campaigns and much expansion, a Roman policy that allowed generals to pay their men with plunder caused Roman legions to be far more loyal to their generals than to Rome itself. This was a problem, as Roman generals were more often motivated by personal ambition than anything else, and in 100 years there were at least 12 civil wars, culminating with Octavian pacifying the Senate, naming himself Caesar Augustus in 27 BCE. We'll conclude today's video with Julius Caesar. Julius, by the time he was famous, was the Roman governor of Gaul, and was part of the moderately successful First Triumvirate composed of Julius himself, Marcus Crassus, and Pompey the Great. These were all the major political players of Rome at the time, and eventually the Senate called Julius to Rome to face charges that he'd overstepped his authority, so Julius did the reasonable thing and started a civil war that ended with him being named the first citizen as both consul and dictator. Another guy named Brutus, concerned that Julius intended to become a monarch, a major no-no, took part in a plot to have him killed. Julius was stabbed to death on the Senate floor, thus paving the way for Octavian. Thanks for watching A Brief History. Next time I'll do my best to summarize the long and storied history of the Roman Empire, and then after that I'll be free to go into greater detail with specific topics. If you notice something I got wrong or just want to suggest future topics, please leave a comment below.